Once upon a time in a quiet neighborhood where tall glass buildings stood beside small suburban homes, there lived a man everyone whispered about. He was the CEO of a large company, a man who carried himself with power, authority, and a sense of untouchable pride. His face rarely showed a smile, his eyes seemed tired, and his voice was often sharp. To the neighbors, he was nothing more than the grumpy millionaire next door, a man too busy for kindness, too important for small conversations, and too cold to connect with ordinary people. Children avoided him, adults only greeted him out of courtesy, and his mansion stood like a castle with walls built not just of bricks, but of loneliness. One morning, while rushing out of his house in a perfectly tailored suit and holding his briefcase, he noticed a little girl standing by his gate. She was no more than 7 years old, wearing a school uniform that seemed a little old but neatly ironed. Her backpack was almost bigger than her, and she looked up at him with the kind of innocence that could melt even the coldest heart. But he was in no mood for distractions. He gave her a quick glance and continued walking toward his car. Just as he unlocked the door, the girl's tiny voice rang out in the crisp morning air. "Will you walk me to school?" The words stopped him in his tracks. He turned slowly, thinking he had misheard. Children never spoke to him. They were too afraid of his stern face and cold reputation. Yet here she was, a little girl with big hopeful eyes, asking him for something so simple, so human. For a moment, he felt annoyed. Why would she ask him? Didn't she have parents, friends, or anyone else? His instinct was to dismiss her with a curt shake of his head. But as he looked at her, something deep inside stirred, a memory, faint but persistent, of another little girl from long ago. His own daughter, whom he hadn't spoken to in years, used to ask him the same thing. Back then, he was always too busy. Meetings, deadlines, business trips, those were his excuses. He thought there would always be more time. But one day, time ran out. His marriage ended, his daughter grew up without him, and now she lived on the other side of the world, barely calling, barely remembering. The last time he heard her say, "Daddy, will you walk me to school?" was the day he had rushed out the door with a wave, promising he would do it tomorrow. Tomorrow never came. The girl's innocent question cut through the armor he had built around his heart. Still, he didn't know how to respond. He cleared his throat, straightened his tie, and said, "Where are your parents?" "My mom works early in the morning," she replied softly. "And my dad, he's in heaven." She pointed toward the sky with such purity that his chest tightened. "It's just me and Mom. But she leaves before school starts, and sometimes I walk alone. Today, I didn't want to be alone. That's why I asked." Her words fell like a whisper but carried the weight of 1,000 emotions. He looked at her fragile frame, her trusting eyes, and felt something he hadn't in years, compassion. Against his usual instincts, he sighed and muttered, "Fine. Let's go." The walk was only a few blocks, but every step felt unfamiliar. The girl skipped happily beside him, talking about her teacher, her best friend, and how she loved drawing pictures of the stars. She even giggled when she noticed how stiffly he walked, as though he were on a runway instead of a sidewalk. "You don't walk like normal people," she teased. For the first time in years, he almost laughed. At the school gate, she turned to him and smiled brightly. "Thank you, mister. You're the first person who ever said yes." Before he could respond, she ran inside, her laughter echoing in the air. He stood frozen, briefcase in hand, with a strange warmth spreading through his chest. Something inside him shifted that day. The next morning, he expected her to be waiting again. And she was. This time, she greeted him with a cheerful, "Good morning, neighbor." And without waiting for his reply, slipped her tiny hand into his. It startled him, he hadn't held a child's hand in decades. But he didn't pull away. He walked her to school again, and then again the next day. Slowly, it became their ritual. The once grumpy CEO began adjusting his schedule, leaving home a little earlier just so he could walk her. As days turned into weeks, he found himself listening to her stories more closely. She told him about missing her dad, about how her mom worked 2 jobs, about the stars she wished upon every night. She even asked him questions no one else dared to ask. "Why do you always look sad? Don't you get lonely in that big house? Do you ever wish you had someone to eat dinner with?" At first, he brushed off her questions. But deep inside, her words touched the wounds he had tried so hard to bury. He realized how lonely he truly was. His millions, his luxury cars, his empire, none of it filled the emptiness of losing his family. And yet, this little girl, with nothing but a backpack and a smile, was filling that void piece by piece. One rainy morning, when thunder roared and the streets were wet, he saw her waiting without an umbrella. She shivered but still smiled when she saw him. Without hesitation, he opened his umbrella and bent down to cover her. "Come on, let's go," he said, this time with genuine warmth in his voice. She leaned into him, holding his hand tighter, and he felt something break inside him, something that wasn't pain but healing. News spread in the neighborhood. People whispered not about the grumpy CEO anymore but about the millionaire who walks the little girl to school every morning. His employees noticed he seemed calmer, kinder, even approachable. For the first time, he started smiling in meetings, and his secretary swore she once heard him humming. Then one evening, her mother knocked on his door. She was a tired but kind woman who thanked him with tears in her eyes. "You don't know what this means to her," she said. "She lost her father so young, and she's been so lonely. Walking with you, it makes her feel safe. It makes her feel like she has someone." Her words pierced him deeper than she knew. In that moment, he realized it wasn't just the girl who needed him, he needed her too. She had unknowingly given him a second chance to be the father he had failed to be before. Months passed, and the bond between them grew. He attended her school play, clapped the loudest at her drawing competition, and even helped her with homework. His mansion, once silent, now echoed with laughter. On weekends, they baked cookies, watched cartoons, and sometimes just sat under the stars, talking about wishes. One evening, as he tucked her drawing into a frame on his wall, she whispered, "Do you think my dad in heaven is happy that you walk me to school?" His throat tightened. With all the sincerity in his heart, he replied, "Yes, sweetheart. I think he's very proud." In that moment, he realized something powerful. Life always gives second chances, but not in the way we expect. Sometimes, it gives us another person to love, another opportunity to heal, another chance to do what we once neglected. The man who was once known as a grumpy CEO millionaire was no longer the same. Through the simple request of a little girl, "Will you walk me to school?" he rediscovered love, compassion, and the beauty of human connection. What started as a reluctant walk to school became a journey of healing, redemption, and hope. And so, in a world where wealth often blinds us to what truly matters, a little girl reminded a lonely man that the greatest treasures are not found in bank accounts or boardrooms, but in the small, everyday moments of kindness that touch the soul forever.